you.
See how simple
So
that
what
was?
were you going to show me?
Nothing, I'll show you after.
Oh, okay.
Just the show I'm watching. You gotta watch it. I've watched it with Glow.
I've never heard. What is it? Oh yeah, you mentioned that to me. It's really good. Is it like is it fiction? Is it,
Sorry for the delay. We're ready to go.
that's okay. Are we good? Oh, and listen, we may do some Q&A. If you could just put that somewhere. Perfect.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, sorry, just a little.
No, it's fine. What am I gonna start with? I was trying to think of like welcoming the stranger songs, but I don't know. Oh, I'll do the Rory Kra or something. Where did that go? To Rory?
Shabbat Shalom.
Where did it go?
I just need to get the camera.
Okay.
Do you think I should have the announcements before the speaker or after the speaker? Any opinion?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, probably not. Okay.
See what feels right.
I would say just go ahead and start with the
Okay.
opening. So we're good. Okay.
We're on page 638. Deroikera leven imbat ve'in sorechem kemo vavad. Deroikera leven imbat ve'in sorechem kemo vavad. Neim shimchem velo yushabat shuvenuhu beyom Shabbat shuvenuhu beyom Shabbat. Back to the top. Duror yikra leven imbat ve'in sorechem kemo vavad. Duror yikra leven imbat ve'in sorechem kemo vavad. Nein mashimchem velo yushabat shavu venuhu beyom Shabbat shavu venuhu beyom Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos to all of you. I hope you've had a nice week during this beautiful wine country weather. Our thoughts remain with the people of Ukraine during this difficult time of war. I think most of you know that CBS member Deborah Alter-Starr is going to be speaking later tonight about the situation in Ukraine and about her son's perilous but successful journey out of Ukraine into Poland with his Ukrainian girlfriend. That's going to be a little bit later in the service, but I would like to invite Deborah to come up to the bima to light our Shabbat candles. and you can follow that blessing on page 120.
I don't know this part so
You can do
much.
that.
I can do that after I light
You
the
can do
candles, right? Okay. Wow. Was that success? That's good.
We've had issues with the matches. so
I
we have
was
some new
nervous. I was nervous. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik shemer shel Shabbat. Amen. Thank you.
You know, I think peace is on a lot of people's mind right now, at least the aspiration for peace. So I can think of no better Shabbat song than Shalom Aleichem, asking God to bring peace on all of us and on all the world. That's on page 142 in your prayer books.
Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We turn to page 146 and rise for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Please join me in English at the bottom of page 147. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe. yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your love release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy in your presence. The Shema is on page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please be seated.
V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam le'od hayadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha Lama'an tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kidoshim le'elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liod lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Page 158. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, and working wonders?
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'edar ba'kodesh, Nora tehilot, o sefele, malachutcha ra'uvanecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'edar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot, osefele, osefele.
Please join me at the top of page 161 as we read together in English. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chayim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Please take a moment now for your own silent thoughts and prayers.
Page 178. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'kol b'veitecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol eit uv'chol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
At this point in our service, we think of those in need of healing on this Shabbat, healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing, on the following men and women from our community or those known and loved by our community: Lynn Feingold, Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Ginny Sims, Eileen Conklin, Nancy Jeanette, Michelle Camisia, Joshua Hyman, Dylan Bonnick, Diane Butler, Elsa Loach, Elena Goldman, Mark Charney, Michael Edwards, Jesse Friedman, Scott Stern, Tom Sabo, Yolanda Galaz, Judy Nystrom, Beverly Eigner, Carl Rice, and Michael Kassan. And if anyone has the name of a person they wish to add, please do so.
Stephanie Valentine.
Judy Finer and Roy Steele. Hasten the faithful.
Marilyn Loden.
Robbie Goodman, Marcus Smith, Sally Seaver, and Nick Randall, and Waller.
And I'd like to add all those who have been displaced and traumatized in Ukraine, in particular Deborah's son Aaron and his girlfriend. The Misha Barak is on page 511.
Misha Barak Avoteinu, Misha Barak Ve'imoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Ve'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu Yevarech et HaCholim. Misha Berach Avoteinu, Misha Berach Ve'imoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu החולים.
The Aleinu is on page 586. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We are going to be saying the Mourner's Kaddish and doing the Kiddush and Motzi after our guest speaker. But before I introduce her again, I'd like to invite board member Bradley Wasserman to come up to the bima to share some important announcements with all of us tonight.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom. Please join us at CBS for Purim on the Ranch from 10 to 1 p.m. in costumes and ready for activities, spiel and picnic. The event is free and you can pre-purchase your picnic lunch and sandwich. That may have ended. It's $10 online if it's available when RSVPing. Monday the 21st, Soul Sisters meet on Zoom at 4 p.m. with host Joanne Miller. My Journey by Donna Karen, memoir. My journey traces Karen's early days as an intern at Anne Klein, the creation of her 7 Easy Pieces, which forever changed the way working women dressed, and the meteoric rise of her company. Thursday the 24th at 6 p.m., Napa PD will be providing the follow-up training for us in person at CBS. You do not need to register, but this will only be successful with your participation. This will be followed by a training with private organization, Community Security Service, who will have an online training for CBS members on Zoom April 12th. The CSS training requires registration. Shorashim will meet on March 27th and April 3rd at 9:30 a.m. We do need to RSVP with Leah to save a spot. Are you interested in being an adult Torah trope class? Leah Savage will be leading a 10-week spring class beginning next week on March 28th. The class costs $36 per participant to cover supplies. Please email Leah for details and more information. It's only 3 months until Camp Havarim begins. Registration is open and we have limited space. You can register online, or if you have questions, you can contact Leah. And we'd like to give warm wishes to this month's birthdays. Happy birthday to Eve Khan, Eli and Hadass Lodrigan, my apologies. Bunny Goldstein, Michael Blattis, Scott Stern, Jana Waldinger, Austin Guggenheim, Marlo Cohn, and Peter Gannett. And no anniversaries. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Shabbat shalom.
So I invited Deborah Alter Star to light our Shabbat candles, and I've shared with you that her son Aaron was in Kyiv, was in Ukraine, and was able with his girlfriend to get out and to get to Poland. And Deborah has been speaking regularly ever since about the situation in Ukraine and about what we can do and about how dire everything is. Deborah, you and I don't know each other that well. I came here 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. But what I do know about you is that you are an activist, and you are highly respected in this community. In fact, the first time Deborah and I met was at a meeting with the principal, Brian Gardner of Shearer School, about some project we were going to do before COVID kind of derailed that. But I met with him earlier this week, and we're going to get that back on track. But Deborah's an activist. She is involved in so many important causes. And I have no idea about your theology or about your religious practice, but I do know that your commitment to justice is so much in alignment with core Jewish values that I'm proud that you're a member of our congregation, and I'm honored that you're going to speak to us tonight about Ukraine and about your son's experience. So Deborah, would you please come to the bima? Well, why don't you introduce them when you have the mic in front of you? Because we have people at home also, and they won't be able to hear without the mic.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So Andy is here, and my friend Christina, my new friend, is coming up, and I'll let her introduce her family. But basically, you may have seen our son Aaron, who just turned 26, in the paper. He's been on multiple news stations as the expat who stayed, and then he was the expat who left and had a harrowing journey, and that he did, 50 hours. But all through this time, his point was, don't focus on me. I'm going to be okay. It was very traumatic, okay? But it's like he could talk later about the trauma, but that would miss the point of the trauma going on now. And that's why also part of what I want to do is yield most of my time to Christina, because they have family. Her family has family in Ukraine. We still have a lot of friends in Ukraine, and it's just completely heartbreaking. And you don't have to have someone there to feel that way. But, you know, the woman who helped get Aaron out is an old friend of his. And Kate, who I met in 2018. I've been there 3 times. Closer? Less close. And just the one thing I want to say is that we do have a lot of events coming up, so we'll get to those later, not tonight probably, because I feel like the most important thing is being present in this moment. So Kate got Aaron out because her husband works in security. I said, Kate, you know, they have to go back to Kiev and pick up this passport that belongs to his girlfriend, Anna. It's a long story. They can't leave without the passport. They'd spent the week before that in Lviv to be safer in the West. And so he agreed to have the security system set up to give him a ride out, to give them a ride out. And she literally had her passport, and 13 hours later, the bombs are falling, and they got a ride out. Something that should have taken 12 hours took 50 hours, most of it, half of it on their feet at the border, and that was the traumatic part. But Kate, when we talked about this, she's like, I can't get my mother and my sister to leave Mariupol. And her sister was calling her crying, her dad was working in Poland. They haven't gotten out. And so like every day, I've stopped asking because it's just so horrible. And other people don't know where their families are, and that's how Christina and I met. So I really want us to understand that there are things that we can do. We do fundraise, but we also encourage advocacy because literally, I mean, people are starving. And that may come to Kyiv where Anna's family is. Hopefully not, but that's where we're at. So I wanted Christina to have a chance to share because a lot of people are isolated with what they're going through. So County Health and Human Services has been helping people connect with our initiative, Napa Valley to Ukraine, so that they're not feeling alone with these issues. And so and Christina's joining to try to help connect other people. So.
It might be easier to use this one.
Can you see Christina? Is she visible from this?
Yeah, she should.
Yeah, this makes it way more real that there's so many people looking at me. My name's Christina. I'm here with my family, Stanislav, Nikolai, Hastiel, and Aliena. My husband was born in Ukraine, and he came over here when he was relatively young, but I'm just not good at this.
Just relax. You're just sharing, and if you don't want to, you can.
It's very isolating, especially here, because it doesn't feel like anybody seems to understand what my family is going through. I know that there's a community here, but I don't know if everybody within that community is like my in-laws, but they don't socialize much outside of their family. And I think right now, everybody needs each other. And whether they're directly affected because they have family members there or friends there, or they just feel so many emotions about what's going on there, about the fact that there are people dying and people trapped and so many other things going on. And I know how I felt is that I was sitting at home watching all this stuff happen. Sorry. And I have friends in Kiev and in Russia. And all I could do was sit and continue to update myself. Eventually, updating yourself like crazy makes you a bit of a mess. And I had no way to help anybody. Thankfully, I met her. And I'm trying, I think it's very important to raise awareness of what's going on, and hopefully nip the budding discrimination before it gets worse, because people are anti-Russian right now, or anti-this, anti-that, because of what's going on. And there's so much misconceptions and fears and misinformation. And I think that it's important to get out there that it's beyond the political, because that's important. I'm not saying it isn't, but what's really important is what people are experiencing and what people need to help them go through this. And it's a support system. And I'm hoping that we can really get that going and have people who need it get the information that they need, and to feel that what they're feeling and how they're experiencing is normal for the situation, that there is nothing wrong with what they're feeling, and they're not alone. I know that my daughter, my youngest, is asking me why people are so evil and so horrible, because they've never experienced war. And there's other children of families like ours that are experiencing this for the first time. And as much as I wish they weren't and that it would never happen again, unfortunately, it is, and that's the reality. I really don't know what else to say, because if I keep talking, I'm just going to ramble, because I want to cry.
Deborah, unless you wanted to add to it, we have some time for questions. Do you want to open it up, or do you want to add a few things?
I do want to add one thing and say that, like, the power of doing something as opposed to nothing is what we've been talking about. So Christina's been researching, she's been reaching out to, like, Sacramento, there's a Ukrainian community there, and finding therapists so that we can promote virtual groups that are in English, Ukrainian, and Russian. And so, you know, it's like people keep giving of themselves in different ways, and sometimes it's at least something we can do, right? So
I think that's important to say that just because somebody doesn't have a specific skill set, I have been able to reach people that are in Sacramento and a friend, I have some connections in San Francisco, and these are social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists that are willing to help me gather resources and also support a virtual or eventually maybe an in-person support group that anybody would be welcome to come to, and they'd be able to run that. But also, if the person doesn't have a necessary skill set like that, that doesn't mean that they can't do something, because doing something could be just sitting next to somebody and being there for them while they're experiencing this and empathizing with them. But that can't happen if we don't start talking about what's going on and how it feels and who needs this support system.
So the last thing I wanted to mention is that there's actually, so we have family friends who are, Aaron, partly connected to here, who are Ukrainian students in the Bay Area, and they've come and done several presentations. But what's very interesting is they're part of a network of 1,000 people, Ukrainians, I call it a diaspora, 800 of which roughly are within Ukraine. Many are professionals. They may work even in the army or in the government or in nonprofits, or be volunteers from the general population, like Christina is saying, and then another 200 here. And this includes also the nonprofit we're working with, Nova Ukraine, which is based in the Bay Area, again, a large Ukrainian community, and it's run by Ukrainian volunteers primarily. Other people can participate. And so they've been able to do things like, I don't know that it's resolved, but your husband's family, his parents, your husband could not reach relatives in Dnipro, which is where Vika, one of our student friends, is from. And so she's reaching out, trying to make those connections for people. We had a member of Temple who has a relative whose best friend's 90-year-old relative was in Kiev. And so it was the same process of reaching in through this network and trying to connect people. So there's a lot of remarkable things going on that are worth perhaps talking about another time, but our time is short, and I appreciate this opportunity just to connect us all and be here tonight.
Thank you. As I said, we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone has anything for Deborah or for Christina while they're here, any questions? Why don't we? You'll need to probably speak into that, so we'll start with Kathleen.
It's not a very sophisticated question, but does Aaron have a place to stay?
So it's a yes, and it's also a no in a sense, because where they're staying is with Anna's sister and brother-in-law in their fold-out couch in their living room, in their small apartment. So they have a place. That was the only place for them to stay and be on the border, relatively, because her parents are still there, and to have support for Anna from her sister. But that's it. And so they're not sure what comes next. They're the lucky ones, so that's the point.
Thank you. Linda, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you. Later on, or somehow, can the synagogue post websites with, with ideas to help, not just monetary, which is very important, but I would really appreciate that later, or as soon as possible.
We have that information, so I sent out some people are on my community action list that's been more Latino community focused, but I can resend out a newsletter we have that mentioned 3 things that people can do to advocate. Even if you're not sure what you would want your electeds to do, just to tell them that you're concerned. I'm very concerned. I feel personally responsible to do everything I can to message for Mariupol, for Kate and her family, They're literally starving and no water and no power, and it's winter, no heat. So that's one thing. And then we have both this connection to Nova Ukraine that people can donate to. We have a direct link that goes into a fund that's specific from our area so that we can work with them on where it disperses to. There's an event also coming up on April 3rd that will be at the expo that will feature at least donations to 2 nonprofits. But the Community Foundation also has on its website, Napa Valley Community Foundation, has about 12 nonprofits that they recommend that are all US-based, and Nova Ukraine is one of them. It's the only one in the Bay Area, and it's the only one run by Ukrainians and putting input and having a network on the ground this kind of unique way. And then the last thing is that we have a personal fund. And we set up this personal fund, which we've dispersed funds for food. One of our student friends, she used her financial aid money to pay for her neighborhood, small town, because a lot of extended family there and neighbors didn't have food, and so we reimbursed her. We've also paid for another student, her family, they're all in the Army Territorial Defense. Her mother, an elementary school teacher, her father, a construction worker, her sister, 26 in marketing. So when all these civilians signed up to help their country, they didn't have helmets or warm winter clothes that the military would wear or communication devices. So we bought some things like that for her family's 3 brigades. So that's 600 people literally putting on the clothes, going on patrol, ending their patrol, peeling off the warm clothes and giving them to the next person in their unit. Hopefully some of those needs have been reduced. And then Kate, her family, her husband didn't have things, so we got him some gear also. We got some night vision things. So our discretionary fund is like food, first aid, and also this protective gear that's non-lethal, but it's life-saving, hopefully.
Thank you. And we just sent out an email again today. We've been sending information for the last couple of weeks, both in terms of Deborah's fund and also a couple other important relief agencies. So if you are interested in giving monetarily, just look at today's email, and we'll be sending it again, for a while. We have time for one more question, and David, you had your hand up, so I'm going to let you have the last one.
How many Jews are in Ukraine?
We knew that answer, but for Kyiv, do you remember what it is for Kyiv? And I don't know right now, honestly. It used to be like we went to Dnipro, which is where Sas's family's from, and we went to the Holocaust and Pogroms Museum there. And the fascinating thing was that they were talking about, on average, 50% of city dwellers before pogroms in World War II were Jewish. And there were more Jews in Andy, are you looking up in Dnipro? I was surprising. I think it was like 10%. Is that right? That's just as an example of one city, because more than our 1 to 2%, but still probably low.
The answer is between 350,000 and 400,000 Jews. Currently, 400,000.
350,000 to 400,000 Jews in Ukraine,
So
at least before the war,
No,
right?
that's current. Is that current? Yes. Current, yeah, before this war, out of a population of 40 million. So then you have to realize also looking back into cities versus the rural areas.
Christina, Deborah, yeah.
Wait, I wanted to say one other thing, though, but I think that number is not accurate, and I will tell you why. Sas's family, are you ethnic Jewish, I think is what you said.
My mother-in-law is ethnically Jewish, and my father-in-law is, according to his DNA, is just Ukrainian. Not that there's a just Ukrainian, but it didn't have any Jewish in that in the mix.
What I wanted to add to that is that the students that our friends, they're both Jewish. But what happens is that a lot of people left, or they had to give up Judaism. And so, like here we say people are culturally Jewish, but in Ukraine a lot of people say that they're ethnically Jewish. And sometimes they only find out as a surprise because the family is not practicing culturally or religiously. And I think a lot of people know that President Zelensky is Jewish, so he would maybe identify as ethnically Jewish. And so that may be a lot more people than we understand.
Deborah, Christina, thank you so much for bearing witness and for sharing your stories and your insights and your observations with all of us tonight. You're always welcome here, and if anyone has further questions for Deborah in particular as a CBS member, if it's okay, feel free to reach out to Deborah, because as an activist, you know lots of different ways that we can help, and you shared some of them tonight.
Please also reach out to our guests, because as I said, it's very isolating here when other people aren't having this experience of not being able to reach your family. And so that's why I invited them to come tonight, because so many people have given us support with Aaron, and Aaron will say he's okay, even though he's very upset. Yeah, Christina, they can't find their family. We're trying to have volunteers that our student friends can connect to find them. But so just giving this family some love and support is a mitzvah. Thank you.
We are going to continue with the Mourner's Kaddish as we think of those who are no longer with us, those who have died both recently and in seasons past. And I would like to read the names of those who have died during this past year. Elliot Kapchan, Sanford Rubin, Stuart Paley, Bonnie Kaploff Mamie, Dr. Ian Miller, Jimmy Rabb, Sandra Somick, Michael Gordon, Larry Elson, Arnold Trombler, Erica Cornelison, Gladys Shubin, Richard Magano, Clark Smith, Stephanie Rabb Axner, David Ernesto Kaplan, Pat Pate, Annette Goldberg, Maggie Sherman, Sandra Benko Fichtenberg, Nicholas Huff, and George Montano. We also remember and honor the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of the deaths of Francis Katz, Bertha G. Muscatine, A.C. Greenhouse, Bernard Greendorfer, Elliot Lewis Schachter, Harold Margolis, William Katz, Bruce McChesney, Dr. Alvin V. Pensler, Florence Pascan, Isadora Smith, and Joseph Wood. And if anyone has a name they wish to share, please do so.
John Dunlap, Larry Becker,
Marcus Zahn,
John Loden and Tom Nelson.
The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Please rise. Of course, we also think of all those who have been killed during this war, the many thousands. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, bi'alma divra cherotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalel v'yitalal shmei dekudsha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace grant peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say, amen. Please be seated. We're going to conclude with our final song, and then we're going to do Motzi and Kiddush. And we haven't announced it yet, but I can tell you that soon we will be bringing back, hopefully, our Kiddush, at least maybe some wine. Or our oneg, at least maybe some wine to start, and then eventually some food, but we'll keep you posted on that. What's our final song tonight?
Esa Enai, page 643. Esainai El Harim Esainai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Esainai El Harim Esainai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Me'ayin Yavo Yavo Ezri Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? Esainai El Harim Esainai El Harim.
Please rise. And as we honor and celebrate Shabbat, I invite all of you to join Gordon and myself as we chant the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen
Amen.
l'chaim.
L'chaim. And now, in anticipation of dinner, for all those who have not had dinner yet, we're going to do the motzi together. And I promise you, one day we will be able to return to the custom here of touching one another and then ultimately touching the challah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. That was a perfect final song, S.I.N.I.